Excuse me, I have a warrant for your arrest. Let me in your house. No. Where's your gold? If you don't tell me where your gold is, I'm going to take you to jail.
Okay,
I don't want that. I don't want to be
all right. I have a warrant for your arrest. Tell me where your Bitcoin wallet is.
I don't have any.
Well, we think you do.
Okay, go look for it.
Well, they're not going to find my gold either.
Well, of course they can. Of course they can. They can look for it because it's physical and it exists in a physical.
Well, isn't your Bitcoin stored on something physical? You have like a flash drive, or even if you wrote down your seed phrase on a piece of paper?
It's not on this piece of paper. It's in my head.
Oh, your whole seed phase is in your head.
Yes, because I understand what it means to be a sovereign individual, and I do not take that lightly. So joining me today is American stockbroker, financial commentator, and media personality. He's the CEO of Euro Pacific Asset Management and the founder of Schiff Gold. He's also one of the biggest critics of Bitcoin, which is exactly why we're here today. We first clashed heads back in February earlier this year on Fox News, where we debated Bitcoin versus gold. So here we are, ready for round two. Peter Schiff, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. Thanks for coming to visit me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Like I said, we clashed heads back in February, so there's some stuff that we disagree on, but there is a lot that we do agree on, and that's where I want to start. So would it be fair to say that you are against money printing, you are somewhat anti-government and very pro-free enterprise capitalist?
Yes, and if you're in favor of freedom, by definition, you want to minimize the size of government, because government is really the antithesis of freedom, because government takes away some of your rights. Government has power, they have a monopoly on force. So if you have government that fulfills its legitimate function, which is just the protection of life and private property and to help you secure your rights, then a limited government can be a force for good, because it's possible that having government can lead to greater freedom and greater prosperity. But the problem is governments rarely stay small. Once you create a government and you give it some power, that power corrupts and the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the government causes more harm than it does good. And I think pretty much every country in the world, government has already grown beyond the point where it's a positive force and it's become a negative force. And so the world would be much freer and much more prosperous if we had a lot less government.
Freedom is a key word right now, especially because of everything that we've seen over the last 2 years. So what was the issue for you in terms of the lockdowns and the mandatory medicines? Is that really does that go against your beliefs in terms of how big or how small a government should be?
Well, absolutely. I mean, all these governments forced people to stay at home. They forced businesses to close, supposedly because it's for the public good. But we're supposed to be a free people, and we don't act for the collective good of society. We act for our own individual good, and we make our own choices. And if you believe in that, that's how you have the most prosperity for everybody. I mean, the whole collectivist idea, that mindset that the individual needs to be sacrificed for some greater group good, that has never worked. That has always led to misery. I think what should have happened with COVID is people should have been free to make their own decisions. If people wanted to wear masks, they could wear masks. If they wanted to take a vaccine, they can get a vaccine. If some businesses wanted to stay open, they could stay open. If some customers wanted to go to those businesses, they could. Employers, employees, everybody is free to negotiate their own decisions. And I think if you look at countries that maybe were closer to that, like maybe Sweden, I mean, Sweden didn't have any of the lockdowns that we had, yet, and so they didn't have to bear the costs. And the Swedish people are fine. And if you look at all the inflation that we're experiencing today, a lot of it, not all of it, because the inflationary seeds were sown a long time before COVID, but we poured a lot of water on them during COVID because it was the worst combination of monetary and fiscal policy I've ever seen. And I called it out in real time back in March of 2020 when they unveiled the policy. They told everybody not to go to work, and they ordered all the factories shut. But then they wanted everybody to keep on spending. Well, how do you keep on spending when you're not producing? And so the government just printed a bunch of money and said, here's some money, spend this. And a lot of people were given 2 or 3 times more money than they earned when they were working, except when they were working, they were productive. They were contributing to the economic pot. But when they stopped working, they were contributing nothing. But they were given all this money to try to take out of the pot. And so money supply exploded as goods production collapsed, and the consequences were obvious. Back then, prices would go way up, which is exactly what's happened. And you have politicians trying to blame it on COVID or blame it on supply chains. That's not why we have inflation. It's all the money that's been created by central banks, supposedly, to keep the economy out of recession while they were locking everybody down. But if the politicians want to lock people down, then they have to be willing to allow a recession to happen. I mean, you can't avoid it. If you tell people to stop working and stay at home, the economy is going to have a recession. You can't try to paper that over by creating inflation, but that's what they did.
So they printed unprecedented amounts of money, quantitative easing, as we saw over the last 2 years. So in your opinion, why is that bad? And also, if you know that it's bad, why don't they know that it's bad?
I don't know. Maybe they knew and they didn't care. I mean, the problem in the United States is the U.S. economy is so screwed up. It's so fundamentally flawed. We have so much debt. We can't really survive a real recession. And so the Fed felt it had no choice but to pump the economy full of money because nobody had any savings. Nobody was going to be able to stay at home and miss a paycheck. They couldn't pay their rent. They couldn't pay their mortgage. The whole financial system would implode because everybody was living paycheck to paycheck. So how do you take away everybody's paychecks when that's all they've got? But that should have been a reason not to lock down the economy. Maybe they should have thought, you know what, we can't afford to do this, so let's just take our chances with COVID. But because they thought we had a free lunch, that hey, we could just send everybody home because we've got the Fed that can just print money, they maybe didn't understand that you can print a lot of money, but that doesn't mean that money is going to buy anything. The key is to produce stuff. What gives money value is the stuff that's produced, at least fiat money, paper money. I mean, you have to be able to buy stuff with it. So if you just print money that's not connected with any productivity, the money has no value, or at least the value goes down and the price goes up. So prices have to adjust to this increased quantity of money. And that's what we're seeing. And the adjustment is really just getting started. We are going to have some serious price increases in the next several years, regardless of central banks raising interest rates. And most of these central banks that are raising interest rates are going to keep printing money. And even though they're raising interest rates, the rates are still low. Look, the ECB raised rates today 75 basis points, up to 1.5%. Their inflation rate is 9.5%. That's negative 8% interest.
Yeah.
How is that going to stop inflation? Meanwhile, they're still printing euros, but they're not printing nearly as many as the Fed is printing dollars. So the whole world, look at what's happening in Japan. Everybody is flooding their economy with paper, and so prices have to go up. There's no way to stop it.
I ask everyone this because when we talk about this, it just sounds so obvious, supply and demand, right? But what I don't understand is why they do it. Is it destruction by design? Does it benefit those at the top? Are they trying to push people deeper into poverty through inflation? What's your take?
Well, I think they do it because they think it's better than the alternative of not doing it. Because politicians, their main goal is to get reelected. That is the fundamental problem with any kind of democracy, is that the leaders just want to get reelected. And if your reelection depends on getting 51% of the vote, you basically have to bribe the electorate. I mean, 51% of the people are not that bright, right? They're not going to understand economics, so they're just going to vote for whoever promises them something for nothing, right? They don't understand that there is no free lunch. They just want whatever they can get for free. That's why the United States was formed as a republic. Our founding fathers tried their best to protect us from the evils of democracy. It worked for a while, and the country prospered when democracy was kept in check. But now it's kind of run amok, and it has all over the world. So when politicians want to give out free stuff, they don't want the public to know that they have to pay for the free stuff. So they don't want to have to raise taxes. So they want to say, here's some government program. I'm giving you education. I'm giving you health care. I'm giving you housing, or whatever it is they're doling out. They don't want to say, oh, but I got to raise your taxes to cover the cost. So they want to print the money to cover the cost. And so they pay for spending through inflation. But then when prices go up, as a result of the inflation the governments create to pay for their programs, now they look for a scapegoat. Oh, well, we have all this inflation. What's causing this? What could it be? It must be greedy businessmen. that are gouging the consumer. Maybe it's this man Putin.
Yeah.
Look at it. Putin is jacking prices up. It's Putin's price hikes. I mean, they're always going to try to blame somebody else for the inflation that they create. I mean, even today, at the press conference, Lagarde said that the inflation is caused by supply problems, as if the ECB monetary policy of negative interest rates and quantitative easing have absolutely nothing to do with it. Just pure coincidence. It's all just supply problems. And the same thing, Powell. Whenever Powell talks, he never accepts responsibility for creating inflation. He's always looking for some external cause that's got nothing to do with their own monetary policy, when the actual definition of inflation is an expansion of the money supply. So if that's what inflation is, how can the source be anything other than the central banks that are in charge of the money supply?
Sounds so simple. Yeah, here we are. It's unbelievable, actually. So I'm interested to know, to what extent would you like to see the government involved in our lives politically and economically?
Very small. I mean, small enough to drown in a bathtub is what they say. But no, I mean, you just need government to secure your rights. That's all. I mean, if you look at America in the 19th century, total government spending was less than, I think, 4% of GDP. I mean, that's tiny. And now it's enormous. You know, I recently took a look because I watched this speech that President Biden gave in Philadelphia, where the Declaration of Independence was signed, and he made many references to the Declaration of Independence. Of course, he missed the most important ones. He kept saying all men are created equal, or he was saying, but he missed the essence of it and why we have government, which is to secure liberty and property. But the Declaration of Independence, the motivating factor for the colonists to want to rebel against your country, right, your King George, was taxation. Yeah. Right now, they were saying taxation without representation, but they objected to the taxation. Well, if you look at the amount of taxes that colonial Americans paid to the king, it was about 1 to 1.5% of their annual income. That's it. And they were objecting. They had a revolution because they were paying 1.5%. And the king was taxing Britain a lot higher than the colonies. I mean, colonies got a good break. But even in Britain, I think the subjects at that time that were living in the United Kingdom were paying about 5 or 6% of their income in taxes to the king.
Sounds pretty
I mean,
good.
wouldn't the British love to go back to a monarchy and just have to pay 5% tax?
Sounds pretty good. I'd like 5%
right.
tax.
I mean, now you have Brits paying 40, 50, 60% tax. No king of England ever could have gotten away to doing to British citizens what they're doing to themselves through a democratic process. They were better off with less democracy and more freedom.
Yeah, that absolutely blows my mind, especially what we were talking about earlier with the Queen and who could potentially take over after her. But I watched your I'm the 1% Let's Talk video. It's for those that don't know, it's an hour-and-a-half video on YouTube where you basically debated the Occupy Wall Street protesters, anti-capitalists, socialists.
Well.
And it basically was like you were the only sober person at a drunk party with all these people screaming in your face. That's what it looked like. So firstly, amazing endurance. I don't know how you had the patience for that. But I'm interested, why did you go down there to do that? And how did you even have the endurance for it, the patience?
Well, first of all, it wasn't really a debate. It was more of like an argument.
A screaming match.
But I was also trying to be educational. But to be honest with you, my audience wasn't the people in Zuccotti Park. I mean, I hoped that I could get through to some of those guys. But my real audience was that I knew people would be watching it. And I originally came there with Reason. And that's where it originally got posted on the Reason website. And so, but the whole purpose of my going down there, because I saw this protest movement, and the protest was all about the financial crisis and blaming it on Wall Street. And so these protesters were down on Wall Street protesting the bailouts and everything that happened. And I went down there kind of to express some solidarity for their anger and their being upset at these Wall Street bailouts and the financial crisis. But I just wanted to redirect their anger to the proper place, which was Washington. I wanted them to protest at the foot of the Federal Reserve, right? or Congress, that's where the bailouts emanated. I mean, you can't blame a big bank for taking a bailout. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, if the government offered you money, who's going to be dumb enough to refuse it?
Yeah.
The problem is the government shouldn't have offered it in the first place. And I was very much against all of the bailouts from the beginning. And of course, the Federal Reserve never should have pursued that reckless monetary policy. Following the bursting of the dot-com bubble, they lowered interest rates to 1% and inflated a housing bubble. And then it was the government that guaranteed all these mortgages, creating all the moral hazard. So the housing bubble that inflated and the financial crisis that ensued when it popped, it was not created by Wall Street, but by the government and by the Federal Reserve. So I wanted these people to understand that and point their anger in the right direction. But I also wanted to show them that if they really want prosperity, if they really want a better life, government is not where you're going to get it, right? There's all these examples of governments all around the world that made a bunch of promises about just give us more power and you'll live better. And everybody always gets burned. If you get into bed with the government, you know exactly what's going to happen to you. If you want freedom and prosperity, if you don't like your lot in life and you'd like to have a higher standard of living, you need capitalism to do it. Capitalism is the only force that's going to lift people out of poverty. And because capitalism is all about freedom, you know, and you can't succeed in a capitalist system without helping other people succeed too. I mean, that's the beauty of capitalism. That's the invisible hand that, you know, Adam Smith wrote about that in The Wealth of Nations around, you know, same time that we had the Declaration of Independence. But you know, government can take your money, right? Government has a gun and they can put you in jail and they can take your money whether you want to give it to them or not.
Yep.
But a businessman can't take your money. He has to earn your money. He has to convince you to give him your money. Well, if I'm a businessman, how do I convince you to give me your money? Well, I offer you something that you value more. I produce a product that you want. I provide a service that you want, and then you voluntarily exchange your money. So if I want your money, I have to win it over. I have to give you something that you prefer to the money. And so everybody gains in that transaction. And it's only private capitalism, free market capitalism, where individuals, through the pursuit of their own self-interest, end up helping everybody. And that's how you create living standards. That's how you raise living standards. You have more production. You have, you know, businesses are formed, capital is formed, increasing the productivity of labor. And so now there's more goods and services to consume. So the way out of poverty is the free market. So I wanted these people to know that. They were there demanding more government. They needed to demand less government. Get government out of their way so that they can have the higher standard of living that they want.
Okay, so here's the thing. I agree with everything that we've discussed, everything that you said. I'm very pro-freedom, very pro-small government, and I personally think Bitcoin is the answer to everything that we've discussed, and so many people share this view. I know you obviously don't, so Peter, I feel like this is exactly where the debate begins. So tell me, what is the problem with Bitcoin? As you guys know, I'm a huge advocate of taking self-custody of your crypto. So the hardware wallet which I use and want to recommend to you is called Tangem. It's an elegant card-shaped wallet that perfectly fits into your card holder. All you have to do is just tap the card to your phone for activation. The private key is generated on the chip of the card and then copied to 1 or 2 additional cards for backup. So if it gets lost, you'll still be able to access your funds using a backup card. The chip inside of the card has been certified to EAL 6+ standard. This is the highest security level you'll find in US Air Force or NASA systems. Also, the chip's firmware has been audited by a Swiss company called Kudelski Security, which found no backdoor, no malicious or suspicious elements. Unlike most hardware wallets, Tangem is durable, fully waterproof, and dust-proof. There are no failure-prone elements like a battery. All you need is the Tangem card and your phone. There's no need to worry about losing your mobile device. It's just a display. So if anything happens to it, you simply take another smartphone, install the Tangem app, tap the card, enter your password, and make instant transactions with over 6,000 different cryptocurrencies. Tangem doesn't collect any of your data, and also they can't see any of your assets. Their open source app is available on GitHub for inspection. This also means that if anything were to happen to Tangem as a company, you still would be able to access your funds. Overall, Tangem is a very secure hardware wallet. It's easy to use and it's affordable. You can order your wallet from Tangem's official website and get a 10% discount with my promo code Layah, or just click on the link in the description below.
Well, Bitcoin has a lot of problems. I mean, the only problem Bitcoin would solve is if you have too much money and you want to lose some, you could buy Bitcoin and that will solve your problem.
These are sound bites.
No, this is reality. Look, Bitcoin, the idea of Bitcoin is nice. And if you don't really understand what money is, you may be fooled into thinking Bitcoin is a viable alternative. But it's not. I mean, Bitcoin tries to copy the properties that made gold better money than some other commodity. It's divisibility, it's portability, it's fungibility. Yes, I mean, Bitcoin does a good job if you cut a Bitcoin in half, right? Each half is the same. Just like if I take an ounce of gold and I make 2 half ounces, they're identical. All gold is exactly the same, right? It's not like if you have 2 cows, they're not going to weigh the same. They're not going to be the same height. Even 2 diamonds are not going to be the same. They have different cut, clarity, color, stuff like that. But gold's gold, and so it's fungible, divisible. It's really good as a medium of exchange and a unit account and all that. But what Bitcoin doesn't have is any actual value, right? Like gold does. Gold is a commodity. It's a metal. I mean, I have some gold in this watch. But so gold actually has value that can be stored, and since gold doesn't tarnish or decay, it makes it ideal as a long-term store of value, because I can have gold and in 100 years somebody could use that gold for something. It's not going to go away. And so gold was a great commodity to be money, because what money is the most marketable commodity. So in order to become money, you have to start out as a commodity, and then you can become money. Now, you also have fiat money, which a lot of people that are pro-Bitcoin understand the problem with fiat money. And the way fiat money came around is governments, or not even before governments, private issuers would hold real money, gold, in a vault, and then they would issue a note that was backed by that gold that would circulate as a substitute for gold. And those notes were currency. But what gave the currency value was the gold that was in a vault somewhere backing it up. But it was more convenient to trade in the currency than in the actual gold. But what happened later on is currency started to circulate because of government that was backed by nothing. Mm-hmm. And it just derived its value from faith. People just believed that it would have value, despite the fact that it was no longer tied to anything of real value like gold. So what Bitcoin really is like that fiat currency that a government creates, where it has no actual value, but if people have confidence in it, if people believe that it has value, well, then it will have some value temporarily until people stop believing. But in the meantime, even though there are people who believe that Bitcoin has value, the Bitcoin itself is so volatile in price and so expensive to transact in that it can't even function as a unit of account or as a medium of exchange. And it can't be a store of value, so it doesn't even have any of the characteristics that would be required to make it money. It's just a speculative token, and the price can change based on the mood of buyers and sellers, and eventually I think the price zeroes out.
First one I want to get to first is where its value comes from. A lot of people say that Bitcoin doesn't have any value, and I think they land there because they don't really understand how a Bitcoin is created. So I'm going to just go through the steps, if I may, and show you where I personally think the value comes from, and you can tell me what you think. Okay, so miners all around the world use hard capital to purchase electrical energy. Yep. Whether that's fiat, dollars, pounds, whatever it is, they use hard capital to purchase electrical energy. Mm-hmm. That electrical energy is then converted into computational power using the ASIC mining machinery. So specific Bitcoin mining machinery. Mm-hmm. So we now have computational power. Mm-hmm. That computational power, the ASIC miners then harness that computational power and put it into hash power. That hash power is then used to secure and validate the network. So once the network is secured and validated, there's a block reward, and the self-regulating network spits out Bitcoin. So right now it's 6.25 Bitcoin. So what happened was money went in, actual hard capital went in, and as a result, Bitcoin is created.
Yes, I can see that. A lot of energy and resources are wasted creating nothing.
No, but they created something.
No, they didn't. Okay, so what if I went out there and I hired a group of people to dig a big hole in the ground, right? Spent a lot of money, people worked really hard digging that hole. Then I paid the same group of people to fill the hole back up with the same dirt that they dug out. And at the end of the day, I was right back where I started from, but a lot of work went into that, right? I spent a lot of humans were digging and filling and all that. But what have I accomplished? What have I created of value?
Well, a dirt hole is just a dirt hole. You can't do anything with it. Bitcoin has utility.
What? What utility?
So decentralization. It's one of the most secure networks in the world. You have hundreds of thousands of miners.
Yeah, but what's the Bitcoin itself worth?
It's worth whatever the market values it.
Well, right. But how do you know the market's going to value it at anything in the future?
Well, of course it will, because of the value of it.
What value? What can I do with it?
The fact that it's one of the most secure networks in the world. Earlier you spoke about the confiscation of money. So the fact that you can actually hold Bitcoin.
But what are you securing? I mean, I could have the most secure vault in the world, but if I've got nothing inside it, what good is all that security if I'm not protecting anything of value? There is no value that you have with that token. Now, if that token were, let's say, backed by gold, right? Let's say there was a vault that had some gold in it, and then there was a digital token that was issued instead of paper, right? That was backed by gold. I had a digital token that was backed by gold that was every bit as divisible and portable and fungible as Bitcoin, except it actually had something backing it, something of real value. That can accomplish everything that you're hoping to accomplish with Bitcoin, except it would work. It could actually be a unit of account, a medium of exchange, and a store of value, and a viable alternative to fiat money.
So let me try paint it in this way.
Yeah.
So I think that Bitcoin is basically an energy business, right? Try tell that to the miners that it has no value. So an example.
How is it an energy business?
Because so I know a company that put down $8,000 in, and as a result, it spits out Bitcoin, right? And so if you tell them that it has no value, well, they've just put down $8,000. So if I say to them, can I take your Bitcoin for free? They'll say, absolutely not. I technically paid $8,000 for it. Can I give you an iPhone as an example? So say you have an iPhone, right? And you paid $1,000 for the iPhone. And I say to you, can I please have that iPhone for free? Are you going to give it to me for free?
Well, why would I, right? I know.
Right, because you paid $1,000 for it.
That's true.
So why would you give it to me for free? So if I then said to you, do you know what? It's secondhand. I'll actually take it for $750. So now, because of market conditions and supply and demand, obviously, as you know, the price can fluctuate, like it can with gold, with Bitcoin, and any other.
But the thing is, right? But the cell phone actually has value. I can use it, make calls. I can, surf the internet. But if I was dumb enough to overpay, let's say I paid somebody $1 million and they gave me their phone. I mean, I'd be an idiot to pay $1 million, but that doesn't mean I'm going to find a bigger fool that's going to pay me $2 million for that phone. But that's really what's going on with Bitcoin. I mean, the people who are buying Bitcoin or producing Bitcoin, yes, I agree. They're spending a lot of money to acquire or create that Bitcoin because they think they'll be able to sell it to somebody who will pay more.
And they do.
For now. But you don't know. Look, as we're talking right now, Bitcoin is about $19,000 a coin. Now, at one point, it was $69,000 a coin. So there were people who bought Bitcoin at $69,000 under the impression that they were buying a safe haven store of value. And what, they're down 70% right now on that? I mean, that's a bigger decline than just about anything. I mean, you can probably find some individual tech stocks that went down more than Bitcoin. But there's nothing safe, there's nothing secure, there's no values being stored there. But Bitcoin is 19,000 now. Who's to say that a year from now it won't be 9,000 or 1,000? You don't know. Maybe it'll go up. I think it's more likely to go way down than go up. But something that can be that volatile and have such a big move in such a short period of time, I mean, I don't see how anybody would have confidence in it as a substitute for money.
So let's talk about that as a store of value. So gold in the last 5 years is only up 35%. Bitcoin in the last 5 years is up 2,000%. Gold in the last 10 years is up 3%. Bitcoin in the last 10 years is up 375,000%. I personally have a long-term view. It's only 10, 12, 13 years old. It's very new. So I'm not surprised that it's going to fluctuate like this. But I think it's going to even itself out in the next 15 to 20 years.
Look, you could have made the same argument about Beanie Babies and gold. If you go back for the first few years of Beanie Babies, you could say, well, Beanie Babies are a better store of value than gold. Look how much they've outperformed gold as the bubble was inflating. Bitcoin is one of the biggest bubbles in the history of the world. And obviously, as the price of Bitcoin went from pennies to tens of thousands, it outperformed everything. Right? Yeah, if you would have bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, home run. Even if you bought it 5 years ago, you made a really good amount of money. But the majority of people who own Bitcoin are losing money. That is a fact. Most people who own Bitcoin paid more than $19,000. And in fact, a lot of people who bought Bitcoin lower bought more higher. And their average price is now above the current market price. Look at some of these big promoters. Look at Michael Saylor. Look at how much money his company has lost, billions of dollars. Look at that fool in El Salvador. Look how much money that poor country has lost already in Bitcoin, and they're going to lose even more. So yes, you had this huge speculative run-up in Bitcoin, but that's not a store of value. That's just a speculative gain, and the only people who benefited from that are the people who sold. The people who are holding on haven't made anything. They're hoping the price goes back up, but the price is more likely to go back down. In fact, if you look at what happened to Bitcoin in 2021, that was the peak of the bubble, right? Think about all the money that was spent by the crypto industry to pump up Bitcoin and other altcoins in 2021. Massive commercials, every network, billboards, stadiums, Super Bowl ads, conferences. Look at all the NFTs. El Salvador came out. I mean, it was one crazy thing after another. Massive hype. All the celebrities got on board. The athletes, the singers. Massive pump. Yet the price went down. You drive through my neighborhood, drive around my street. Half these houses are owned by crypto people. They came in here last year. They paid $40 million for houses in the street. Crazy prices. 8 times what I paid for my house, right? A couple years ago. Why? They were cashing out of their crypto. All the big money, as they were running all these commercials about how great crypto was and Bitcoin, what were they doing? They were selling. That's why the price didn't go up, despite unprecedented pumping. All these institutions supposedly came in. Not Michael Saylor, but Anthony Scaramucci, Skybridge funds. Those funds are down. Look at all of his funds. They're down 60, 70, 80%. The people that poured in their money are killed. And I think that was the peak of the mania. People are just in denial right now. It's a massive bear market. Look at the technicals. Look at the chart. It's a complete disaster.
So I can't wait to have this conversation again in 5 years because I think you're going to be wrong. So I want to just make clear that there is a difference between Bitcoin and crypto. That's really important.
That's what the Bitcoin maximalists say.
So I'm going to start with limited supply, 21 million. That's really important. There will never be, because we know there's a hard cap. That's really important. You were talking earlier about printing money. With gold, we never really know how much gold there is. There's always more gold
there's
to
not
be
that
found.
much of it.
There's always more to be found. So I think Bitcoin,
a little bit more.
Exactly. With Bitcoin, there's a hard cap of 21 million.
If nobody wants Bitcoin,
it
doesn't matter how many there are. There can be one Bitcoin and it has no value if nobody wants it.
So I want Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin because when the government came and said, if you don't take our mandatory medicines, you don't take our injections, then we're going to freeze your bank accounts. I need to know that I have money that's immune from confiscation. But it is money because I pay people in Bitcoin and they pay me in Bitcoin.
Well,
so I'm literally running a business in Bitcoin.
But
today, I got paid all the way from Hong Kong. So in a country which is under, you know, the China communist regime, they were able to send Bitcoin to me. They didn't send gold to me cross borders. They didn't send fiat currency to me. They were actually able to send me Bitcoin.
And then what do you do?
It came to me instantly. It cost 58 cents. I then sent that Bitcoin to another country in the United Kingdom. I sent it to England. It cost me 58 cents.
Who'd you send it to?
It doesn't matter. My people that work for me. And
what are they going to do with it?
They can do so much with it. So earlier you mentioned buying a cup of coffee. Great, let's talk about that. Right now, the acceptability for Bitcoin is incredible. You have MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, creating intermediary payment rails, which allow you to top up your card and then spend your Bitcoin. I can't take this off and get a cup of coffee with it.
You don't understand how it works. You're topping up your card with dollars. What you're doing with those schemes is you take your Bitcoin and sell it, and then they load up your debit card with dollars.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
Because it still allows Bitcoin to be used. I can't top up anything with Bitcoin.
I can sell anything and put the proceeds on a debit card.
Right. I can sell. Not this gold bracelet. What do I do with this gold bracelet? If I want to go buy a cup of coffee, what do I do?
No, but you wouldn't buy a cup of coffee with your gold bracelet.
Right, but I can't buy Bitcoin.
But you can also have a token backed by gold and use that to buy your coffee, and you can always do it.
A token where?
There's several
on a centralized exchange which can be frozen if I don't have the correct political opinion.
No, on the same exchanges that people buy Bitcoin, or can be exchange peer to peer. The way you exchange your Bitcoin. Look, Bitcoin is not acceptable to these coffee shops or grocery stores or gas stations. No, they don't.
In New Hampshire, in the United States, they do. In Malta, they accept Bitcoin. People have bought houses with Bitcoin. You even accept Bitcoin on Schiff Gold.
No, you don't understand how it works. We don't. The way Schiff Gold sells gold, people have Bitcoin. They use this company called BitPay. BitPay sells the Bitcoin to get dollars, and then they use the dollars to buy the gold. So there has to be a buyer for those Bitcoin in order for you to sell them to buy something else. When there's no buyer for Bitcoin, the bottom drops out of the market because there is no natural demand for Bitcoin because Bitcoin isn't used for anything.
It's a payment of payment of exchange. It's a medium of exchange.
No, it's not.
It's divisible by 100.
Who cares that it's divisible?
And it's amazing because at the point of sale, I can't take my gold bullion bar, saw it in half.
You don't have to.
Figure out how much it is. How much. What's the value of
do you realize that the world was using gold as money for thousands of years?
I know.
And you think people were walking around with saws, sawing off their gold? Of course not. And now with the internet, with blockchain, and with other technology we have, your gold can sit in a vault and it can circulate without you ever having to touch it. So gold is going to work much better as money today than it did in the 19th century, the 18th century, the 17th century, or thousands of years before that. I mean, gold still works. You don't have to try to reinvent the wheel when the wheel still works. And by the way, Bitcoin isn't a wheel, so it's not going to work at all. But I wanted to get back to your 21 million, as if that's some kind of small amount, right? Well, each Bitcoin just represents an arbitrary quantity of Satoshis. So one Bitcoin is
100 million.
100 million. So there's 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. Are Satoshis scarce? There's 2.1 quadrillion of them. Are they scarce?
Well, there's 21 million Bitcoin.
No, but who cares?
Well, no, it does matter. 21 million Bitcoin.
But I don't need a whole Bitcoin. I'll just buy a Satoshi and I'm in there.
Great.
So there's 2.1 quadrillion of those. Okay. Now, the thing is, people
say... There's a limited supply, and that's what matters.
No, but I don't need a whole Bitcoin. I could do just as much with one Satoshi as I could do with one Bitcoin, which is nothing. Because one Bitcoin has no value, and neither do the Satoshis. So it doesn't matter if I have 2.1 quadrillion or just one.
Well, Bitcoin's value right now is $19,000. So Bitcoin
that's its
value.
No, that's its price.
Right.
So you have to understand the difference between price and value.
Okay.
Right? And price is what you pay. Value is what you get. So you can pay a high price, but not get a lot of value. Like I said, I can offer to buy your bracelet for $1 million. I mean, if I offered you $1 million for your bracelet, you'd take it, right?
I don't know. It's my grandma's. Can you make it?
Well, how about your shoes? I mean,
I gave you for $1 million, yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, am I going to get, just because I paid you $1 million for those shoes, does that mean I own $1 million pair of shoes?
I think that's a very surface way of looking at it right now. I totally agree with you that a lot of people are looking to make quick money because they don't understand the value of it. But
well, there is no value to understand.
The value is that it's non-confiscatable money, the most secure network in the world, decentralized.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, people have had their Bitcoin seized. I mean, governments have seized Bitcoin.
People who are dumb enough to hold it incorrectly on centralized exchanges where you would hold the tokenized gold. So I would never advocate ever for holding your Bitcoin or your gold tokens on a centralized exchange. Always hold it in a non-custodial way. That way, it can never be seized. They tried to do it in Canada. They literally reached out to companies who provide the non-custodial software wallets or hardware wallets. They said, can we have the names and the addresses of those people that own those funds? Can we have them? And they said, we can't. We can't stop it. That's by design. Nothing in the world. Nothing in the world is the same as that.
Right, but if you exchange your Bitcoin, right, there's going to be some kind of record of it. They'll be able to track you down. There's some kind of imprint on the blockchain where the coins have gone from one wallet to another.
Be smarter. Don't do that. And the idea
so just have your Bitcoin and never use them. Just keep them buried.
Because the idea is, look, well, because Bitcoin's only 12 years old, right? So as time goes by, there'll be more acceptability for it.
Well, I mean, as far as I can tell,
how much has happened so far?
No, the only thing that's happened over the last 12 years is you have more people gambling with Bitcoin. I don't go into any stores where they're taking Bitcoin. No prices, no goods and services are priced in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is no more used as a medium of exchange or a unit of account today.
It's not priced in gold either. It's not priced in gold either.
Well, I know, because gold
will be.
No. It was at one time, and it will again. It's easy to price things in gold.
It will again? You think I'm going to go down to the shops, get some bread, and it's going to be priced in gold?
I think there will be plenty of merchants when there's a lot of inflation. People either they'll price it in gold or they'll price it in a currency that's backed by gold. The world has been on a gold standard for thousands of years. There have been pockets of time where the world has experimented, not on as grand a scale as right now, but individual countries have gone off the gold standard, gone to fiat, the currency has collapsed, and they go back to gold. Right? Everybody always goes back to gold because gold works. It's the best money that we've invented as men.
Gold has been used for thousands of years, and that's absolutely right. It has, all the way back to Moses, that they were using gold then. But we live in this new digital world where everything is digital, and I think we need money which can cater to that. For example, I went for lunch the other day, and I was getting the menu, and the menu was a QR code on my phone. So the menu is now digital, entirely on my phone. I'm reading books, I'm using Kindles, I'm not putting vinyls in when I'm listening to music. Everything is digital now, so we need money which is also digital.
Let's finish the analogy. So you went and had lunch. Did you have digital food or real food?
Of course I had real food. I'm still a real person.
Exactly. So money needs to be real too, right? You can't just replace gold with digits and claim you have digital gold any more than I can eat a digital sandwich and say I just had lunch, right? Or I'm living in an actual house. There can be a digital house, can't live in it, can't keep me warm, right? I'm not going to get any shelter out of a digital house. So there are some things that have to be real. How are you going to get this huge adoption when it has such bad reputation all around the world?
Great question. So that's sort of implying that it's a Ponzi scheme, essentially, because it's like, well, if nobody needs it and everybody pulls out money,
then pyramid, or
right, for sure, right. But Bitcoin doesn't need all these investors in order to survive because the fundamental utility is still there.
What?
Money, which is non-confiscatable.
But it's not money.
It is money because money is something which
I can
buy and sell goods with it. Gold, on the other hand, is totally confiscatable. People have been confiscating gold since the dawn of time, whether it's Franklin D. Roosevelt.
He didn't confiscate it.
I literally read about it. I was reading all about it today. He literally said to people that you forced them to sell their gold below the market value.
No. So what Roosevelt did is he issued an executive order and he said, if you have gold, you have to turn it in. Right, and we'll give you dollars.
Right. Exactly, you have to turn it in. Excuse me, I don't want you to turn in my gold. This is my gold.
Right, but
this is my money. I am a sovereign individual.
Right.
Why are you telling me what I can and can't do with my money, Mr. Government?
Right, but a lot of people didn't turn in their gold and nothing happened to them. It's not like the government.
I don't want to take that risk. That's like you don't have to pay your taxes. Well, that's like you pay your taxes, but I'm not going to pay my taxes and hopefully nothing will happen to me.
The government didn't send troops
They might
door to
do.
door
They
looking
might
for
do.
gold. Look, gold
I'm
is
terrified.
gold is very hard to confiscate because you can't. If I have
No,
gold,
it's not. They can knock on the door. They can come and take it.
If I have gold buried,
Excuse me, I have a warrant for your arrest. Let me in your house.
No.
Where's your gold? If you don't tell me where your gold is, I'm going to take you to jail.
Okay,
I don't want that. I don't want to be in that
all right.
position.
I have a warrant for your arrest. Tell me where your Bitcoin wallet is.
I don't have any.
Well, we think you do.
Okay, go look for it.
Well, they're not going to find my gold either.
Well, of course they can. Of course they can. They can look
So
for it
they
because
can't-
it's physical and it exists in a
Well,
physical
isn't your Bitcoin stored on something physical? You have like a flash drive, or even if you wrote down your seed phrase on a piece of paper.
It's not on a piece of paper. It's in my head.
Oh, your whole seed phase is in your head.
Yes, because I understand what it means to be a sovereign individual, and I do not take that lightly.
So then,
I take
what
it
if
very
you forget
seriously.
it?
Well, I won't.
Well, how do you know?
Well, I have backup plans.
Well, where are those?
I can't tell you.
Well, see, maybe the government will find that.
Good luck. It's at the
Well,
bottom of my keys
well,
are at the
it's-
bottom of the river. My keys are at the bottom of the Florida Keys.
Maybe,
with my guns as
maybe
well.
that's where my gold is too, right next to your seed phrase.
Your gold is in a vault. We know your gold is in a vault.
You know where my gold is.
I personally don't, but I'm sure the government does.
Look, you've got some gold around your neck.
I do
You've got
have
some
a Star
gold.
of David. I have this.
Yeah,
from
you
my
have gold in
grandmother.
there. That's real value. That's worth more than your Bitcoin.
Well, it's not, and I can't get a cup of coffee with this. I can't run a business with this. I can't.
Well, you could sell it and then you can go buy. But I wouldn't. I would use
sell
other
it.
gold.
I don't wanna sell it.
But if you want to buy Bitcoin coffee, you have to sell your Bitcoin to buy your coffee.
Right now, there are, of course, these intermediaries which allow that exchange
Yeah,
to
but
happen.
you can do that.
Of course.
You
but
can
eventually, as mass adoption grows...
But how do you know it's going to grow?
Because it's already happening.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, it's not.
You can go to New Hampshire, like I said, and you can buy coffee. There are places where I come from in London where you can accept coffee.
Yeah, maybe you can find a lone coffee shop that's owned by some Bitcoin fanatic that is like, I'll take Bitcoin. And maybe every once in a while, some other Bitcoin fanatic happens to visit that coffee shop and they do a deal. But it's very rare that it's happening. And it's, I would say personally, fewer companies probably are marketing that they take Bitcoin than they were in 2017.
We're in a bear market right now.
Well, we've been in a bear market for a couple of years.
No.
But yes, we have.
We were in a bull market last year. That's for sure.
That's over. That's long gone.
Of course, but as time goes by, we'll continue to. I think the bull market will come back.
Well, we might be in a bull market when Bitcoin goes from 5,000 back up to 10,000. But it's all going to be part of the overall bear market because then it'll go from 10,000 down to 1,000, and then maybe it'll go from 1,000 up to 3,000. Oh, it's a bull market, and then it goes from 3,000 to 300. Right, and but we're headed lower, right? The market has peaked, and now it's just about how much longer does it take for the rest of the air to come out of this bubble. I'm
going to paraphrase Elon Musk here. Elon Musk says something really interesting, and it's kind of a touchy subject, so just bear with me the way I try to paraphrase this. He basically said that death is good, right? The reason he said that death is good is because it allows new ideas to come. That's what he said, okay? I know it's a little harsh, but that's what he said. So back to the coffee shop example. Right now, it's only Bitcoin fanatics that accept Bitcoin at these coffee shops. I agree with you. But as this new generation who really understand digital technology, Gen Z, my generation, millennials, as we become older, we approach our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, we are going to be doing business in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Right now, I actually pay people in Bitcoin.
Well, there may be a lot of people that own Bitcoin now that may be thinking death is good soon. They may be wishing they were dead.
That's financial literacy. We need to teach people to invest carefully, especially with things like gold. Whatever you're investing in, you need to be careful. That's financial literacy.
My advice for
Bitcoin.
all of you young people who are about to get wiped out in Bitcoin, right? Just use this as a life lesson, right? The best part about losing your money when you're young is that you have a lifetime to earn it back and to learn from those mistakes. So in the future, you don't repeat them and lose even more money. And so I'm not concerned about millennials getting wiped out in Bitcoin. I mean, okay, it's like, lesson learned. And hopefully the people who, went from paper fiat to digital fiat, maybe they'll find themselves to real money and they won't forget what they learned about free market and stuff like that when they went off on this a bad tangent into Bitcoin.
I always think people should be responsible for their own financial decisions.
Yes.
What people do has nothing to do with the value and the utility of Bitcoin. So I think it's a shame when older people get scammed. I think my grandparents are getting scammed right now by some fake Amazon caller. It's unfortunate when that happens, obviously, but that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. I could call an old person up and say, hi, I've got some cheap gold for you, and then what are you going to blame gold for that? No, of course not. Criminal activity happens and you can't blame the vehicle.
What I think is fraudulent about Bitcoin is the entire thing. I mean, if you look at how Bitcoin is presented, it looks like a coin and it's gold, right? It's meant to look like gold, except it's nothing like gold. It's not a coin. It doesn't have a color. It doesn't have any of the metallic properties of gold. It can't be substituted for gold in any area where gold is used. How is Bitcoin created? It's mined, like you mine gold, but you don't mine Bitcoin. You solve a math problem. How is that mining? Calculating.
Okay. Look, I understand.
So the terminology is all meant to confuse people, to get them to believe that what they're buying is something similar to gold, when Bitcoin has nothing in common with gold. It's the opposite of gold.
Well, it has a lot in common with gold.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, of course it does.
It does not.
I would be happy to say that.
Can you conduct electricity with it?
No, but it doesn't matter. But you can do other things with it. Can you do cross-border payments with gold? No, of course not.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
It's very expensive. Are you going to ship it across the world?
I can ship it for free. All I have to do is have my gold stored and have ship the ownership, transfer the owner. The gold doesn't have to move. Just my ownership of the gold. No, it's not.
Of course it's bad.
No, it's not.
Because then it's basically paper receipts, and we're back to
no, but the gold. No,
it's
not a fiat currency. It's real currency because it's backed by gold.
Well, I'm just saying we're back to what we were doing.
Look,
I want to make sure that I can flee when I need to flee. So as an example, just as a really important example, right? I always like to talk about Nazi Germany. I think it's an amazing example. The Nazis were there. They were taking the valuable possessions, including the gold of Jewish people, right? If they had their gold stored in Germany, that would be a big problem. Are they comfortable fleeing?
Yeah, but what if they had their gold stored in Switzerland and they just had a digital?
Well, they didn't. It doesn't matter. It's
I know.
Stored in Germany, and that's bad, right? So when they want to flee and go to another country, how on earth are they going to do that? How are they going to deal with that?
Well, now though, you don't have to do that.
Exactly, because we have Bitcoin.
So
we can flee without Bitcoin.
No, you can have a tokenized gold. You can own gold in a token form, the same way you own Bitcoin. The actual gold can be in Switzerland. It can be in Singapore. It can be in Dubai. It can be someplace that you don't live.
It can be confiscated. And that's a problem.
But the problem with Bitcoin is the value can be confiscated because it has none. It's a price. What if you're relying on your Bitcoin? Hey, I've got all this Bitcoin that's safe, but when you go to spend it, nobody wants it. The bubble has popped. You don't know what Bitcoin is going to be worth in 10 years. It may be worth nothing. Right? There's a very good chance that it won't have any value. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it will go up.
There's a chance.
But there's no chance that gold's going to be worthless in 10 years. It's just not going to happen.
I don't know.
Well, why would it be?
I don't know. All I know is that people would say oil would have no value. People would say oil will always have value, and then the March 2020 crash happened, and it was trading at negative prices.
Well,
I don't know what.
Well, it still had,
I don't know what. Not really, because nobody needed oil because we were all locked down. So I don't know what black swan event happened to
that was
gold
oil.
Either.
That was only physical oil for delivery at that moment in time. But if you looked at oil prices for a year forward, they were still positive. They were only negative because people had to store it and people had no place to put it.
Right.
And so if you got stuck with physical oil and you had no place to put it, so people were paying people to take the oil off their hands because that was a confluence of events that temporarily depressed oil. But obviously oil was cheap. If you had a place to put it and someone paid you $30 a barrel to store oil, it's $90 a barrel now. You made a lot of money buying cheap oil. But there is no cheap Bitcoin because no matter how low the price is, it's still overpriced.
That's your opinion. And I really think Bitcoin will be here in 10, 20, 30 years to come. I think we're moving into a new digital world. And as we see more government intervention, I think the purpose of Bitcoin will become more apparent to people rather than just gambling like a casino. I think for me, the most important part is sovereignty, the fact that I can flee any lockdown when it happens, the fact that you don't know how much I owe, nobody can see anything, and it's that, being that sovereign individual, I think is more powerful when it comes to Bitcoin than it is with gold. I still think gold is very valuable, you know, I'm not looking to push gold down, but I do see value in Bitcoin, and I think that you will one day too. Do you own Bitcoin?
No, I don't have any Bitcoin. And I have no interest.
Have you ever owned any Bitcoin?
I did own some for a while that was gifted to me, but I lost the password, and so they're gone.
So they still exist. You just weren't being responsible with your seed phrase.
Well, the person who actually set my wallet up never even told me the seed phrase, and never told me the password. All I had was the PIN, and I knew the PIN, but all of a sudden my wallet stopped accepting my PIN, and that's what I thought was my password. So that was my first.
How did they give it to you? Was it on an exchange in a?
It was in a wallet called what's it called? Block, crypto. I forget. It was Eric Voorhees and his buddy. They set up the company. I had a debate with him in Soho in New York, and then we went out to dinner, and he gave me like $100 worth of Bitcoin or $50 worth of Bitcoin. And over time, other people just gave me some Bitcoin. So I never bought any, but I ended up with like a third of a Bitcoin. That's what I had. And so, you know, I have no access to it, but you know, it's no big deal. It would have been nice if I would have sold it and got some money out of it. But
well, I can help you get access to it, and then when Bitcoin goes back up, Bitcoin goes back up straight to the moon, you'll be even richer.
No, it's not going to the moon. It's coming back down to Earth. You know, and in fact, it may be buried deep beneath the Earth. But
with the gold,
you may be
with all that extra gold.
You may be right though about digital. I mean, digital is revolutionary, and you know, it could transform our monetary system. Gold could be the basis of digital money. I believe that. You know, there's 21,000 altcoins. Do you know that?
I'm not pro altcoins though. I'm not interested in altcoins. I think.
But what the hell's the difference? What's the difference between them and Bitcoin?
Limited supply, centralized, backed by VCs.
Some of them have limited supply.
Well, some of them are backed by VCs. They're not decentralized. The technology is terrible.
But
you just can't.
A lot of them have better technology than Bitcoin.
Some of them, well, because what they do is they sacrifice the security for efficiency. So they have bigger block sizes, and that's really dangerous. I'm happy with sacrificing certain types of efficiency in order to have the best level of security.
But you think nobody is going to come up with a better Bitcoin than Bitcoin?
I'm open to it.
Yeah, then your Bitcoins are worthless because now everybody wants something better.
We'll see if something better comes along.
And then you're screwed when it does.
Not necessarily, not necessarily. But I think we'll have to agree to disagree. Yeah. You are Mr. Bitcoin. Sorry, you are Mr. Gold. I am Miss Bitcoin. To agree to disagree there. Yeah,
well, there are a few other Miss Bitcoins. I've run into a few of them. But I don't think you're going to have to wait for something to come along that's better than Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin will self-destruct on its own before that happens. So, you know, it's not going to be like a long-term, you know, you don't have to wait much longer.
Okay, I look forward to having this conversation again in a few years. And I hope that your gold is not confiscated. I hope nothing is confiscated of yours so that you can remain a sovereign individual, because that's really important.
Well, I've had things confiscated, but not my gold.
Yeah, no, I understand. We won't get into that. But I want to thank you so much for coming on. And where can people, you know, follow your work, see what you're doing? I have a podcast, the Peter Schiff Show podcast. So people can go to schiffradio.com. They can go to my YouTube channel and, you know, listen to the podcast there. If they want to get some gold, you know, Schiff Gold, right? Which they can use Bitcoin to buy if they wanted, because you accept crypto.
Well, we enable you to sell your Bitcoin so you can buy some gold, yes.
Peter, I want to thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Right. I think we have to agree to disagree. And I'm sure we'll have another conversation in 5 years where Bitcoin is much higher, probably sooner than 5 years. And then we'll pick it up then. All right. Thank you so much. We'll do it. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button and hit subscribe so you never miss a video. We'll see you all next week.